Hello and welcome to the Wholeness and Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Megan Tubes, founder of Libra Living Wellness Limited. This is episode number 8, and it is called Meditative Mind, learning to quiet the mind through the chaos of life. And my guest today is Dominique, and I forgot to ask how to pronounce your last name. How do you
Methe.
pronounce your last name? What is it?
Methe.
Métis. Okay. I knew it was like kind of
Very French.
French. So I was like, I'm gonna mess it up. So I'll just ask her. But yeah, Dominic and I met through Leanne, who was also on a podcast episode. She kind of was like, hey, you should connect with Dominique. I think you guys would, hit it off and kind of talk about wellness and things like that. And so, yeah, we just connected and had a conversation. And honestly, I think I've only met you one time, but I feel like I've kind of known you for a while. But I just feel like I kind of personally just have that kind of connection with you. And sometimes that happens with people.
Yeah, the connection is so easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I usually have the guests say something like, well, actually, first, before we get to that, Dominique, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what it is that you do?
So I'm a registered social worker. I graduated in 2014 from the program, and then I worked 10 years in a men's institution, so a prison. And I decided I needed, to shift that and try something new because of various aspects.
Mhm.
I'm trying private practice. Uh, the clinic that I'm working with is in Shediac in New Brunswick. And I am aiming to work with women, with mothers, or like pre and postpartum. So, like, if they have any anxieties about the pregnancy,
Mm.
or postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, anyone with birth trauma, anyone struggling with the transition of becoming a mother, and also just who is looking for support. And I'm also working with people dealing with infertility
Okay.
and pregnancy loss. So a lot of like womanhood, a lot of like motherhood, and because I think there's a big lack of resource there,
Mm.
and I'm really like passionate about that topic, and I want to help others, and I want everyone to have like a good experience and process
Mhm.
any trauma that they had along with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Like I am not a mother myself, but I hope to be someday. So I it's great to know that I can come to you when I am struggling. And I also like to have the guests say either a fun fact or something interesting about yourself.
Um, I have like two things in mind, I guess, but I
Sure.
guess it's typical. Like, I really love to travel. I think it gets you outside of your comfort zone and you get to learn a
Mm.
lot about yourself because you're taking yourself, you're going in a new country where you don't know the language, you don't know the currency, you don't know the space. So you have to be really resourceful. And with that comes a feeling of empowerment and,
Mm.
discovering what you're capable of doing.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Where's the last place that you've traveled or have you traveled
Uh,
recently?
So in November, my partner and I went on our first trip without the kids since
Okay.
having kids. So we
Yeah.
went to El Salvador.
Okay.
I was saying that it would be really cool to explore a country that is not, bursting in tourism.
Yeah.
And they have a very, turbulent history, which is
Mm.
just switching around. So I said, like, wouldn't it be cool to go explore a country that is still really, really authentic and that you can see the culture, right? Because a lot
That's
of places
cool.
now with like everyone traveling, which is a good thing, but travel does have an impact on countries. Like
Yeah.
they get rid of, the local coffee shop to put in a Starbucks so that,
Mm.
it's more appealing to tourists.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went there for 10 days and We hiked the volcano. We went to see like
Cool.
waterfalls in the jungle. We did some beach time. It was really, really cool. And I really love that country. And I hope that I can bring my kids there one day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Like I personally haven't traveled like that since I was like a teenager. I went to Ukraine in high school to teach English for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So kind of like with my youth group at the time. And that was really cool and interesting. And then, I mean, I guess you could say I did travel. I mean, I'm from the States and then I moved to Canada. So I did kind of move, to a different country, although I find Canada and US are very similar in ways, so it's not too big of a difference. Um, but yeah, other than just like traveling to go home to see my family, that's kind of all I've done. Um, but I think I kind of feel like I'm okay with that too. Like I'm just like I'm kind of a homebody now and I'm just like, yeah, I live on a lot of land, but I still think it's very interesting like traveling and just exploring those cultures and things like that cuz I watch TV and certain things. I think we watched some kind of food thing and he goes around, and to different countries and try the food. And I was like, that would be really cool because we really like food. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would be fun to do. So,
There's
yeah.
like so many aspects of travel that like expands the mind and gets you outside of your comfort zone. So
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. I like it. Cool. Well, let's jump right into today's topic, meditative mind. Now, when I kind of was thinking about this topic, I really thought of like we think of so many things throughout the day. Like I find our mind is just constantly going thoughts, thought, thought, thought. And it made me think of that show or movie, What Women Want, where I think it was like Mel Gibson and he could hear all the thoughts of women like when he passed. And I was like, imagine we could hear everyone's thoughts when we walked around, how crazy it would be, right? It would just be constant thoughts. Like it would be very noisy. Not only is it noisy in our own minds, but just thinking of how noisy it would be out there hearing everyone's thoughts. So anyway, it was a crazy thing that it just made me think of that movie. But I think of it in terms of, you know, meditation and quieting the mind or finding ways to quiet the mind. And personally, over the past few years, I've really got into it more and made it kind of a priority to just meditate daily, to have that moments where I'm not thinking, even though during meditations, I'm like, oh, did I go put the laundry on? Did I? And I'm like, okay, Megan, focus. Um, and I do notice that when I do it consistently, it's my mind is better. It's better equipped to kind of handle things throughout the day and or the stressors of the day. And when I don't do it, it's like, oh, okay, I feel a little chaotic in there, and I need to quiet it more or practice quieting it more. So, in light of that, Dominique, why don't you tell us what a meditative mind means to you?
so for me, when I look at that term, I think, meditation is about, like you said, quieting
Mhm.
the mind, right? But when you sit in meditation, it's like you have to constantly practice it.
Mhm.
Because when you're like, I'm going to start meditating, and you sit down, and then you're, boom, a thought, and another one, and another one, and another one. And then you're like, well, this is too hard. Like, I can't quiet my mind. But the more you do it, the easier it's going to become. But a lot of people think, meditation is in sitting in complete silence, that your mind is in complete silence. But I think that you need to sit and you're going to have thoughts. But meditation is helping you to not hook on those thoughts, right?
Mhm.
You notice them, but you let them go, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, once again, the more you do it, the easier it's going to become. And what you said there about the video, it made me kind of think of, the brain of a mother, right? I'm facing that. It's, you hear the term motherhood mental load,
Okay. Yeah.
which is like a big to-do list that you keep in your brain that is constantly evolving, that you check something off and then two other things adds on to that. And it's something that women, that, mothers carry. And it's really hard to understand for the husband because they're not living that. But
Mhm.
that is like the constant chatter in your mind, right? Everything that you have to do. And I did a little video on my social media, and it's me like having like a million thoughts at once. And then it pans to my husband, and he's like, it snowed. I think can I go skidooing tonight? Because it's like two different realities.
Hmm.
And when you do start practicing meditation, you feel a bit lighter because you're not always in that pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, um shoot, I lost my thought now. My thought got away from me. But how you said, it's not like thoughts are going to happen, and just kind of let them happen, but it's not focusing on them. It's,
Right. Not
bringing your attention back to that present moment. Um and it's about practice, be like, it's not going to be easy to do, and some days it's probably going to be harder than others because you're going to feel that mental overload uh more days than others. And what you were saying, kind of like the constant to-do list, like, as I mentioned, I'm not a mother myself, but I think women are just generally like that. We create these like crazy long to-do lists for ourselves that, to me, and I'm saying this about myself, because my partner sees it. He's like, well, that's gonna be there tomorrow. Like, why are you so worried? Oh my gosh, I gotta do this and this and this and this. And instead of like, okay, well, what do I really need to focus on today? And what's, what maybe needs to be done today, but it's these other things, it's okay if I don't get to them. So there's that kind of gentleness, I think, that comes into it with when we're learning to kind of be more meditative with our mind, or bringing that into practice, that some days are going to be harder than others to do it, but it's that constant practice of it, and that we're going to get better at doing it. And I mean, sometimes like, there's lots of days where I don't meditate, and I do feel that. And again, it's remembering to be gentle and kind to myself, that instead of like beating myself up, like, oh, I didn't do a meditation, I'm so mad, but being like, it's okay, I'll pick it up tomorrow. Or how about let's do just a short meditation, maybe not as long as I normally do, right? So I think of that as well. So what are some practices that you do now to quiet your mind?
Um, I am into, like, I guess if you want to call it like mindful breathing, I'm paying a lot
Yes.
more attention to my breath,
Mm-hmm.
because we all do it, of course, but we don't notice it. And there's something that shifts when you start to pay attention to your breath in those moments of chaos, in those moments that you feel so, the anxiety in that,
Mm-hmm.
doing a couple of deep breaths, it brings you back to the present. So every night I am doing some breathing exercise, and not for long, sometimes 4 minutes, but
Yeah.
it just, putting that in my routine also, gave me permission, not permission, but gave me the tools that when I'm faced with a real life situation, that it's kind of an automatic, okay, I can do some breathing and just calm down and then come back to the present, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing that a lot, um, and just paying attention to my thoughts, which is a constant practice.
Yeah.
But once again, the more you do it, the easier it is to pick out those thoughts that are making you spiral, or that are catastrophizing, or that are all or nothing thinking, right?
Yeah.
So, because I think, we live in this constant state of the world that does bring a lot of anxiety. So, like, the baseline of everyone, I feel, is like really high strung. And
Mm-hmm.
then you put like your personal things in there. So, a lot of people are seeing a lot of anxiety, right? And when you have anxiety, your mind just goes 100 miles an hour, and then you create these scenarios in your head and you start to believe them because that's what you're saying to yourself.
Yeah.
But those scenarios, like, they're not valid, right? What are they based on? They're based on your fear, your
Mhm.
fear thinking. So I am always questioning my thoughts. I am always saying, okay, where is this coming from? Like, I do a lot of catastrophizing, which is called. So like jumping through the worst case scenario all the time,
Yeah.
right? So when I do that, I'm like, okay, we'll put the brakes, like we're gonna like reset and like explore that thought. Where is that coming from?
Yeah.
Is like the like is there any validity to that? Like,
Mhm.
and then the more you explore it, the more you're like, okay, I'm gonna shift this thought to something else, right? So I think that is kind of like a, I don't know if I would call it like a meditative practice, but it's just like paying attention, right? And
Yeah.
while doing that, you're kind of quieting the mind because you're not letting yourself get looped in that constant chatter.
Yeah. Yeah,
And something
definitely.
else that I think, because I thought of that question, and something else that I do often is I listen to music, but I
Mm.
listen to music like, sometimes instead of watching TV, I would put on headphones and just sit there and listen to music because I really, really love music. So and I really feel the song and I'm present with the words that they're saying. So that's kind of
Mhm.
meditative.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's so much of that. I was like, yes, yes. Like how I do the same thing where I always think of the worst case scenario and I tend to focus on that so much more, creating that kind of negative loop cycle of thoughts instead of focusing on, wait, let me pause. Where is this really coming from? Obviously, it's coming from a state of fear, state of unknown, state of uncontrollability. And it's like, okay, well, let's try to maybe rephrase that or calm down those negative thoughts and change them to something more positive, something more empowering. And that's something like I'm still working on myself, constantly um, learning to make that shift, or also to bring that awareness is so important because we have all these thoughts happening automatically based on our belief systems. And I think because they're happening that way, we don't really pay attention, and we're just like, it's just in a sense normal for us to think those types of thoughts. Um, but it's really important to like you said, like catch those thoughts when they're happening and really saying, wait a second, where is this really coming from? Where, is this really true, or is that just my belief system,
Right.
making it seem real, right? And I think of the word fear. So I don't know where I had saw that, but false evidence appearing real is
Oh, that's
kind of,
cool.
yeah, I don't know where I saw that. And I was like, ooh, I got to write that down. That's really cool. Um, so yeah, and that's kind of where our fear is because it's that unknown of what's going to happen. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? So,
Mhm.
but we just focus on that negativity. Um, so what are some struggles that you face, and how has the impact of not quieting your mind affected your wellness?
The spiraling that I
Yeah.
call, right? It's the constant getting hooked on those thoughts, right? Getting hooked on the worst case scenario. And
Yeah.
sometimes it has to do with past experiences, right? You live through
Mm,
something, and then when you're faced with something similar, your brain automatically goes, well, last time it went like that, so it's probably going to go like this now. So when I notice that I don't practice, all my tools, I spiral out a lot. And again, it's a constant, you know, working on myself for that. But yes, I notice myself getting hooked on those thoughts. And then you have like a situation which, again, like fear and the unknown, those are two things that really drives up those thinking patterns.
Mhm.
And then you create this scenario in your head, and then that changes to like something worse, and then another thing and another thing, and then next thing you know, you're like so detached from the reality on something that you don't even know if it's going to happen. So I notice that when I don't use my tool, it's so easy to go down that rabbit hole, right?
Mhm.
And I notice too, like when I go to bed late, and depending on what I watch, and my exercising and eating healthy, like I'm noticing that all of that also has an impact, because I started getting into this really good routine, and then I had a week off, and I actually saw what that did to me. And then I
Mhm.
was stuck in those spiral a lot more.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's really interesting because we don't always notice those small things that we do, like eating right or exercising. But I know, like, it's when I take a week off or I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do this today. I do notice the effects, Um, and yeah, I just think like with eating too, especially, we don't always see it. It's something that kind of happens over a long, like, to help us in like a positive way. It's not just like, oh, today I eat healthy only, or tomorrow, it's that consistency that really makes that effect. And the same, I guess, with having a meditative mind, it's that consistency and constant doing it that is going to help strengthen our tools as well, as we kind of talked about. um, what are some things that you've learned from quieting your mind? Like, we've kind of talked about some successes already, but is there anything else that you could share on that?
That it's really, really difficult to quiet the mind, right? And
Hmm.
often we think that, we don't have control on our mind. But I always remind my clients, like, you're the only one that has control on your mind.
Yeah.
And when you start shifting your perspective on that, then it feels less of a big mountain, and it feels more achievable, that actually, you know what? I have control of my thoughts, right? And I have control to hook on thoughts or unhook, right?
Hmm.
So, but it is really hard to do. And sometimes it really does feel like you don't have control on what you're thinking, because you're
Hmm.
so deep in it, right?
Yeah.
But the more you practice, once again, the easier it's going to become.
Yes. Yes, definitely. I had a quote that was somewhere in my mind, and I wish I could remember it, but it was something about the power of our thoughts and how,
Mhm.
like, really it can empower us or it can really hurt us. And um and I agree with you. Like, sometimes it feels like we don't have control because we have those systems that are in, or like our old habits or old belief systems that have been kind of embedded within us from early, as a child, right? So it's like we didn't learn how to, I feel as I grow older, I'm like, okay, that belief system or that it's not old habit is not working for me anymore. I need to change it, right?
Right.
um so and it is harder. Like, it's not to say that we learn something and we become more aware of our thoughts, that we're not going to have those hard days
Mhm.
sometimes, but it's remembering, okay, it's okay, like, I can get through this, I will work through this, and still bringing that awareness into, okay, I'm having this negative thought right now. What could this mean? Okay, I'm fearful of this situation because this and this. Well, how can I feel more empowered instead?
Right.
Right. And I think it's making that shift in perspective of bringing more empowering thoughts into our mind. Because yeah, we have lots of thoughts going through our mind every day, but it's making sure that they're good thoughts, to help us get through
Yeah.
the day, and again, to feel kind of more empowered and not spiral out of control and fall kind of into, I always think of a pit, fall into that kind of
Yeah.
negativity pit, right? So
And
um
like the more you explore your thoughts, the more you take time to pay attention to what's really going on in your head,
Mm,
the more you're gonna, see it from a rational side, and it's gonna help your head to like understand where that thought is coming from, and you're going to
mhm.
be really able to like detach, right, from that thought,
Yeah.
because now you have the rational side that is like, okay, no, like this is coming from this, or this, I'm triggered because this happened to me in my childhood, like this is not, it's two different things. So you're going to be more able to detach. Like the brain is our most powerful tool,
Mm,
and if you practice paying attention to your thoughts, you're going to feel like you're taking your power back, and you're going to feel less powerless to your thoughts.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that. Yeah, well, we've kind of covered everything we're gonna kind of talk about today. Um, is there, I guess we can end on, is there any exciting news or anything that you want to promote that you'd like to share?
Um, Exciting news. I don't know. I'm just starting off on this journey of, being in the private practice. So I'm building
Mhm.
my caseload, and I do a lot of social media content, which is, I have a really love-hate relationship with social media. But in today's world, it's like a marketing tool, and that's
Mm,
the reality of things. So I dove, headfirst into that.
yeah.
So I am accepting new clients. We can do virtual if it's not in the area. So I offer
Mhm.
virtual and in person, also on the phone if someone wants to talk and not see.
Yeah.
Um, I can leave all my info with you.
Yeah.
If ever people do want to reach out, and if ever anyone has questions, like I'm open to answering them. I can do like a 15-minute consult to see if your services are right for you. And so yeah, I'm trying to reach the most people that I can.
Yeah.
And I also just signed up for being a practitioner with breathwork.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the clinic that I am working at, there's the two owners. They have their certification for breathwork. So that's really, really cool, and I'm really excited to see where that is going to lead me, because I think it's
Mhm.
going to be another powerful tool for the clientele that I'm looking to work with, because breathwork really helps to process trauma,
Mm.
depending on which breathwork you choose. But I'm thinking, someone that had a pregnancy loss, or someone that uh, had a birth trauma, or any kind of trauma that they feel stuck on. So that's going to be a tool that's going to be coming in the fall that I could start using as well. So therapy and breathwork.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I'll put your information in the description for the podcast. And so people can connect with you that way. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited about your breath work. I remember you talking about it. And I was like, ooh, yeah. Because we don't like, I think you said earlier that we all are breathing normally
Mhm.
throughout the day, but we're not conscious of our breathing. And when we kind of focus on that consciously breathing and that breath work, there's a lot of power to that of relaxing the mind for sure.
And like, depending on like which technique you use, the way you breathe, it like shoots up hormones to your brain, and
Mm,
you get in this state where it's kind of, you know, your mind is so quiet that you can process all that trauma. And
yes.
I've experienced it, and I had some really big realization. And like, you do that for an hour and a half, which sounds very crazy, but it goes by so fast.
Yeah.
And the things you come out of with are possibly life changing. So I'm excited to see, where that's gonna lead me. And yeah, this is all due to making the change, changing careers. So I'm seeing a
Yeah.
lot of doors opening that I wouldn't have the opportunity to go
Mm,
through if I was still at my old job.
right. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited
Yeah,
for you.
me too.
Well, our time is up for today, but I want to thank everyone who tunes into this episode. And I want to thank our guest, Dominique, for joining us today. I'll definitely probably have you come on again. I'm sure there's lots more we can talk about. So, but again, thanks for joining and being a guest on today's podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thanks again, everyone, again, who tunes in. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and until next time.